So hello, everybody. It's an honor and pleasure to present my session today, which is called Narrative Reporting and Real-Time Analytics. And for this session, let's take a look at the reporting side of the house. My name is Opal Alapat, and I'm a practice director here at Oracle Consulting. I'm also an Oracle ACE director, and one of my passions is reporting. Let's hold questions to the end, and note that if you have any questions after this session, you're welcome to email us at info@nrl.com, and they will route your question to the appropriate expert. As Harvard Business Review predicts, a return to pre-virus levels of economic uncertainty will have to wait until a lasting solution to the pandemic, likely in the form of a vaccine, is found. This does not bode well for today's economic future. It could mean that we have to continue to hold it together as best as we can and ride out additional months until a vaccine is proven and released. Or worse, it could mean that we're at the beginning of a very long economic recession. No one can predict what value is this. Your budget and forecasts are going to be off. This black swan event has upended finance and accounting teams across the world, and we're all struggling to figure out how to explain the economic impacts of this pandemic on our businesses. We need to be able to give context to those budgets and forecasts and provide action plans for getting back on track and/or heading off future waves of the pandemic. We call that narrative. How are you prepared to do that? Do you have the tools to do this? Not all industries were impacted the same way. You're going to need a way to explain why your numbers are off. And a simple "because of Corona" isn't going to get you out of this jam. So let's talk about an Oracle EPM solution to help you with that monumental task. But first, let's level set on definitions today. What exactly is narrative? Narrative is giving context to your data through storytelling, often with words. There's an art to narrative. Most people simply summarize the important data points, and that's a good start. Good narrative will inform, cut through the data details, summarize, and communicate quickly. And it is required when financial goals aren't met. If you're watching this webcast, I'm going to assume that you fall into that category. The specific use cases for narrative often include the following: anticipating future risk, communicating key past decisions, relaying important financial milestones, commenting on why something unexpected happened, explaining the future vision and direction, and centralizing important financial notes. And I have seen all of these on my narrative reporting projects in the past. And here are some of the real-world examples of narrative, which have come from our own narrative reporting customers. So here's example one. This is an example of informing. This company is explaining through their annual financial statement how much they pay directors and key management personnel. And in this example, it shares a risk related to financial position and cash flow regarding currency. We often call these notes to the financial statement. And this one communicates key past decisions that this company has made, and also any future direction on preventing these troubling safety incidents. And finally, this one communicates the key past decisions that were significant to this company's financial status. And I've hidden the very specific facts there. In times of uncertainty, generating narrative will become a necessary task. How are you going to generate your narrative for this year? Because not all reporting tools can handle narrative well. Some of you may not be fully aware of all of the different reporting tools that the Oracle EPM stack has to offer. I like to refer to this as the Swiss Army knife of reporting needs. The blue and green text shows the different Oracle EPM reporting tools that align to each reporting function. These are the ones that our customers commonly have. And the green text specifically shows you where the suite of products called narrative reporting provides a solution. So let's take a moment to review these. If I start in the top left corner, Very traditional use case. Customers pretty much all have a need for static reporting. Static reporting is a situation where you have a developer who creates a static report that cannot be changed by end users, meaning it's going to show enterprise information. Usually you see this in the form of an enterprise balance sheet, cash flow, or income statement. Moving in a clockwise direction, then we have this thing called drill reporting. I put it in quotes because depending on the technology, drill could mean a lot of different things. So in the case of the narrative reporting suite, what this means is basically creating a URL that you can drill to another report from an existing report or even to an external website. But other tools handle drill differently. So for instance, in the FR world, which is financial reporting, you could actually drill through to the transactional layer of detail. You could even accomplish something like that with SmartView. So moving on, we have narrative reporting. That is the business practice of narrative reporting, which I will show in infinite detail today. And that is being able to add context to your data by combining your narration with your grids and your charts. We also have ad hoc reporting. If any of you are Oracle EPM customers today, you love the tool called SmartView, our beloved SmartView. And this allows you to explore and drill into and slice and dice your data from your Oracle EPM and analytics tools. Moving on, we have dashboards. This is a little bit more on the analytics side, but there are some solutions on the EPM toolset. And dashboards are going to give you a visual representation of your data, usually summarized data. So you're going to be looking at key performance indicators. And in the EPM cloud world, there are solutions that allow for this. They are not fully robust, fully interactive dashboards, but they do provide really great reporting information. And they are in the dashboards that are available in EPM cloud, as well as infolets, which are little visualizations. And then finally, we have statutory reporting, which exists within the narrative reporting suite and a tool called disclosure management. And this tool, which I'll talk about in a second, is really for statutory reporting and regulatory filing. So it's really used more on the consolidations and the accounting side. So you can see where narrative reporting fits in naturally. It gives you a static reporting solution with its management reporting tool. It can also provide drill reporting, which allows you to link to external content or another report through management reporting. There's, of course, the business practice of narrative reporting through the tool with the same name, narrative reporting, and there is statutory and regulatory filing through the disclosure management tool. So some of you may be asking, there's a lot of reporting tools here. I think I kind of understand the business case for each one of these, but if I look at a more detailed feature comparison, how do these tools actually compare and where do they overlap? So this slide is really for reference purposes. I'm not going to go into every single line here, but I do want to show you and point out where some of the differences are. So the first two columns where the yeses and nos exist are NR, which stands for the narrative reporting tool, and MR, which stands for the management reporting tool. Both of these are tools within the narrative reporting suite. Financial reports is a tool that comes with EPM Cloud. It has a lot of limitations to it, but it is a legacy tool that a lot of people have been using for many decades, especially with the legacy on-prem technology suites. And then, of course, our beloved SmartView, which is an Excel add-in tool, which really is good for ad hoc analysis. So I've listed some pretty high-level features here on the left-hand side. And like I said, I don't really want to cover all of these. This is really more for reference purposes. What I do want to show you is where some of the tools kind of pull away from the herd. So for instance, you have Oracle EPM, fantastic, but what if you have non-Oracle data that maybe you want to marry with your Oracle data, or you just kind of want to bring into a set of report books or, a report package or something like that? So there's going to be two tools within these four that really allow you to marry that non-Oracle data source. And they do it both through Excel. So in SmartView, if you use the Excel add-in, you could kind of bring in some non-Oracle data sources. You could use cell reference formulas and things like that to marry it together into a single worksheet. Same thing with the narrative reporting tool within the narrative reporting suite. That uses report packages, and it can bring in any data from Excel. So it doesn't matter if it's Oracle EPM or not. In addition, moving on to the next set of green rectangles, one centralized repository, document storage for all of EPM. When you think about governance of your reports, this becomes a key point, which is, well, we love SmartView, but guess what? We have thousands of Excel workbooks that have proliferated all over our network. And how do we control that? How do we govern them? How do we make sure that people aren't changing them all the time? So tools like narrative reporting as well as management reporting that offer that cloud storage, even financial reports to a certain extent, but it was really more in the on-prem version versus the cloud version, allows you to create one repository for all of the reporting objects so that you have them nice and tidy in one place, not proliferated all over your network, which could be hard to find, and it allows you to provide more governance over them. One of the big key differentiators between narrative reporting, the suite, and financial reporting is what kind of source products can I use with that tool. And with FR Cloud, which is what comes bundled in EPM Cloud today, one of the key differentiators is that it is not compatible with OAC Essbase or even the future releases like 19C and 21C. That is something that the narrative reporting suite will provide support for, but FR no longer provides support for that. So that's a key important thing there, especially for those who are using Essbase. And then narrative reporting, the actual tool that's built upon the business practice of narrative reporting, pulls away from the rest in the fact that it offers workflow. So it can provide more governance, more transparency into your report development cycle. In addition, it's actually built for the business practice of narrative reporting, meaning that it allows you to easily provide context to your grids and charts by allowing you to write text directly into the tool itself. And it does that through SmartView, to be honest. And I'll show you examples of that in a second. So let's segue into the spotlight tool of this session. If you're using outdated technologies and you're open to a new way of generating narrative, let me introduce you to a wonderful suite of reporting tools called narrative reporting. And why am I talking about this technology? Why is this important? So narrative reporting is a cloud-only suite that offers many benefits to EPM reporting customers. Some of the benefits include a standalone solution, does not necessarily require Oracle EPM data sources, being able to work with Excel supported data sources so you combine that non-Oracle data, providing workflow, providing many solutions for the different use cases of reporting that are required today. But most important is that it's Oracle's strategic direction for EPM reporting. It's actually built upon a forward-looking platform that allows Oracle to innovate quickly and in ways that they never could before with some of their legacy tool sets. And we'll talk about that in a second as I go through each one of the tools. What's important to know, though, is that if you decide to purchase Enterprise EPM Cloud, or maybe you're on the legacy licensing and narrative reporting is sold separately, what's really important to know is that this is a suite of solutions. It includes 3 main technologies in it. It has the narrative reporting tool, the management reporting tool, and the disclosure management tool. And each tool is purpose-built for what it is supposed to do. So narrative reporting, the actual tool itself, has workflow built in, which means, guess what? You can poke people and get on them for anything, any tasks that they own, due dates that they may have missed. The system will auto-generate messages and reach out to them to poke them about the reporting development lifecycle. In addition, this tool offers centralized artifacts. It supports any data source that you can get into Excel. What we call the objects in narrative reporting is report packages, which I'll refer to a lot more in a second. And it is auto-magically included in the new EPM Cloud licensing. So regardless if you decide to go with Standard or Enterprise, Standard has both the narrative reporting tool and the management reporting tool, and the Enterprise version has all 3. It also has a tool called management reporting. This is going to be your financial reporting contender, and this tool will eventually replace financial reporting. So this is going to be for your static reporting needs, and it allows you to create highly formatted, pixel-perfect reports. It allows you to centralize those artifacts. It uses EPM Cloud, Essbase, and ERP Cloud, like Fusion Cloud data sources. We call the objects in here reports. And then finally, we have disclosure management, and this comes with the enterprise tier of licensing. This is going to be your statutory reporting and regulatory filing solution. It's very different from the other two. It supports XBRL. It also has centralized artifacts. It has its own set of SmartView extensions. It has a taxonomy designer, and it provides a lot of statutory and regulatory filing support. So now let's walk through each one of these tools within the suite and explain how you can create narrative in each one of these tool sets. So first up, the tool within the suite with the exact same name, let's talk about the narrative reporting tool. And again, this one focuses on the business practice of narrative reporting, and it is purpose-built for that task. It links directly to underlying data sources so that your data story is up to date. So report packages is the main object that exists within the narrative reporting tool. And what I would say is the way that this tool should best be used is it's very efficient. It gives you full transparency into your report development process. So it lets you know, if you take a look at some of these screenshots over to the right, who the owners are of each one of the phases. It tells you what the due dates are. There's even a drop-down menu that tells you the status of every one of what we call the docklets, which are the different reporting sections within your report package. And so it gives you that full reporting life cycle from definition to distribution, which is very key when you're doing things like narrative reporting. If you think about looking at an annual statement from any company's website, they often put together an annual financial statement, which tells an entire story of what's happened to the company. It's usually very pretty. It has a lot of graphics in it. It has a lot of charts and grids, as well as a lot of text to tell that entire data story. And that's what this tool is very good at doing. So as far as supported data sources, you can pretty much anything you can get into Excel, you can get into narrative reporting. And it even allows you to leverage anything that you've built into the MR tool, which we'll talk about next. So it allows you to leverage your existing investments. You can actually migrate FR reports to MR and then absorb them within this tool. In addition, anything you created in SmartView or Excel, you can just bring it directly into the narrative reporting tool, and you don't even have to rebuild it. So that, again, very efficient by allowing you to kind of recycle those objects that you've already created. It also has a lot of things related to workflow, so transparency, telling you who the owners are, creating due dates around them, auto-generating tasks and messages to kind of poke those people if they're behind on their tasks. It even provides distribution. You can email the final report package to the end users. You can create these report packages in PowerPoint, Word, or PDF formats. A lot of our customers often use Word or PowerPoint, especially if they have board books that they put together in PowerPoint. And it even supports variables. So it has its own set of variable management to allow for better and centralized maintenance. And some of the pros and cons of this technology. So this is going to be a tool that's going to be unlike any other tool that most people have used in the EPM space. So there is a learning curve. I wouldn't say that it is a high learning curve. I'd say it's probably about medium. It just takes some time and experience to kind of understand the workings of this tool. The workflow is possible, of course. There's great formatting options because it leverages native Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. You can print off everything. You can even download it into the native Word or PowerPoint or export to PDF. You can secure it quite well. As I mentioned before, you can use variables to ease maintenance. It has direct connections to the underlying data sources and a lot of centralized maintenance features as well. It might be hard for you to read all the text, but if you look over on the right-hand side, anything written in red tells you where that was sourced from. So it kind of explains the centralized maintenance. Like you could bring in this top grid here, that is an MR report grid that was brought directly in. This uses a variable here for June 30th, 2016. So that's something that is maintained centrally in narrative reporting. And some of these numbers, you can actually use SmartView Excel and point to specific data cells and bring those in. So as you refresh those SmartView grids, it will change these values and bring them into your report package as well. And it just refreshes based on the press of a button. So that's really great. Some of the cons though, And again, it's kind of hard to list pros and cons sometimes because it just really depends on what you're looking for out of your particular report solution. But some of the cons for this one, so narrative can't really include attachments. There's really no concept of that when you're using narrative reporting. And I mean the business practice of narrative reporting. Usually you just put everything directly into your report package. So you wouldn't have an attachment to like another smart view grid. You would just bring the grid directly into a report package. In addition, there's no direct tie to a specific data intersection from your data source. So for instance, this grid here is really just an import, right, from your data source. It's not tied to a particular intersection that's controlled through the report package interface, which is a little bit different than some of the things I'll talk about next. And there is no user that's tied directly to the narrative. So I don't necessarily know who wrote this narrative. Usually it's a group and team effort, and that is not important for this type of tool. But that is more important for some of the other tools that I'll talk about in a second. And here's a quick demonstration of how a person can enter a narrative into a report package. It's pretty straightforward. So I have a Word-based report package here. And what I'm doing is I've kind of already imported my grid, and now I'm going to just directly insert narrative. And it's like using Word. I've already got my stuff. I just press enter a couple times, and I just start typing my narrative, right? Not a big deal at all. And to kind of show how this works, I'm just going to highlight this and make it very obvious that I did that so that we can see it in the end result here. So this is Smart View that's local on my computer, right? And I've added the narrative. So now I'm going to sync it back to the cloud. I'm going to check it in. And when I go into the web interface and I do a preview of that report package, you'll see where I did that yellow highlighted narrative that it will show up here because now the cloud is fully synced with what I did locally. So there you go. And you can see quite easy to insert narrative and then sync to the cloud. So next up, let's talk about the tool called management reporting. And just to remind everyone, this tool focuses on the creation of static reports. And as mentioned before, it will eventually replace the Hyperion financial reporting tool. So this tool creates an object called reports. Very simple and straightforward. These reports have direct integration with Oracle, and they're pretty intuitive to develop. I would say if you are someone who's developed reports in financial reporting, this is not going to be a big leap for you to learn and understand this technology. It even uses a lot of the same text functions and basic building principles. Now, some of the supported data sources, so this is going to be a little bit more limited, is it can do cross-cloud support, meaning if you have enterprise EPM cloud and you have an instance of financial consolidation on cloud, as well as planning, it will allow you to bring multiple data sources into a single report. So it will support Oracle EPM cloud, Oracle ERP cloud, which is Fusion Cloud, and basically any version of Essbase. It's built upon a forward-looking platform. It already includes chart types that previous EPM reporting tools did not. Oh, I didn't show it. Hang on. So if you look down here, you will see that there are 20 chart types today. And if you look at FR, I think there were like 4. And one of the cool chart types that they just added is waterfall reporting. So that's kind of cool. It does allow you to bridge together multiple data sources into a single report. And then, of course, you can design and preview the results before you send them off to your end users. Now, this tool has its own way of generating commentary, and I'm really going to refer to it as commentary instead of narrative because they're very different concepts here. So here, commentary is in a feature called Notes, which is highlighted here in yellow. And what that means is if I'm an end user, I can run a report, and if the notes feature is enabled, I can enter commentary into that note template. And people who run this report that have access to that data intersection can see the commentary that I've entered. So the pros of this tool in general is very intuitive. There's a lot of great formatting options. You can print these off. You can even export these to PDF. The notes feature itself has a specific dimension intersection tied to it. So for instance, this note here is specifically tied to this intersection that's being shown. So if I pull up a different intersection, let's say a different entity, it will not show these comments because those are specific to the entity that I put in this report. A great thing is end users can directly enter this commentary on the front end, and it can even be secured. It has a direct connection to the underlying data source. So when you refresh the report, you'll see the direct data live streaming in from the data source. And then there's centralized maintenance and storage. Now, cons, again, it's a little tricky here because each reporting tool is purpose-built for what it's supposed to do. So what I would say is if you're kind of directly comparing it to the other reporting tools in the stack, one of the things that I think is something that Oracle needs to work on is to have a user tied to that commentary. And that's something that existed in FR annotations. And I think they need to bring that feature forward. So for instance, notice that, I have these comments here, but I don't really know who entered it. If I were an end user, I'd have to actually say that I'm the one who entered those comments. So there's really no date and timestamp and really no user tied to those notes. In addition, this is a static reporting tool, and these notes have a very different purpose than narrative reporting, so there's no workflow here. There's also, because it's not narrative reporting, but really commentary, there's also a limited ability for lengthy narrative. You're not going to tell the entire financial story through this feature. You're going to use narrative reporting for that. I think there's a character limit of like 2,000 characters for a single note. There's also no variables within the notes. There are within the underlying reports, but not really within these notes, at least not in this point in time. And right now, there's no ability to use any text functions to make things dynamic in your comment. This is really just strictly text at this point in time. And here's a quick demonstration of how a note template can be created and then how an end user can enter commentary directly into that note. And this feature is very intuitive for end users. So I am in the report development screen for this report. I already have one note that's in yellow. I'm going to create a second note, and I'm going to use the existing note as a template. So it takes me directly as a developer into the note template administrator interface. And here I can designate a very specific point of view to attach to that note. And I can even leave behind some instructions for the end users. They can actually modify these and get rid of them if they wish, but at least gives them something as a placeholder so they have some instructions on what to enter here. I can change some of the features like the character limit, whether or not people can actually edit commentary in here. I can change the background color. I am going to change it to this really pink color just to make sure that you know what this looks like on the front end. And then once I've created this note template, it's now available for me to use across different reports. So I've got the note template, which is a centralized object. I can put it whatever note, report that I want to. So I'm going to size this up a little bit. I'll put it directly under the other note template so it's pretty clear what it looks like to the end user. And then I'm going to preview this report so that you can see how this new note template works, how it looks and feels, and how it functions. So now I've run this as an end user, and to enter a comment, I just press the little pencil icon, which is the fancy icon for edit. And now I can add variance commentary here, and I can even format my variance commentary. So I'm going to make this pretty loud and bold. I'm going to change the text color. I'm going to make it bold styling. I'm even going to put, some highlighting behind it so you can see. And this is now available to any other user that pulls up this exact same dimension intersection. So that is management reporting, and that's how you can enter commentary into that. Let's now talk about disclosure management. And again, this is going to be more used on the consolidation side. It focuses on statutory reporting and regulatory filing, but we didn't want management reporting, narrative reporting to have all the fun, so I at least wanted to show you that there is a way to tell your story through disclosure management as well. So disclosure management, again, is really best for statutory reporting, XBRL support, EDGARization. It provides an entire interface for XBRL tagging, validation, instance generation. It has a taxonomy designer. You can use multiple data sources with it, especially tax reporting, which does some country by country output, so it becomes compatible with that. It does have some of the same principles as narrative reporting, meaning that if you can get the data into Excel, you can get it into Discman, which is what we call this tool for short. And they're making some big changes to this tool right now. So I'm going to show you a demo, but it's going to probably be out of date towards the end of this year. What they're doing is they are integrating this with report packages, and we could see a new refreshed interface and functionality as early as September of this year. But of course, Safe Harbor applies. So, narrative and disclosure management, the way that that will work is very similar to the narrative reporting tool. It's going to leverage the disclosure management Smart View extension, and it allows you, as you can see here on the screenshot on the right, to really just add your narrative directly in line with the other elements that you need for disclosure management. It looks and feels very much like narrative reporting in that respect. So it's very powerful. Again, this is one of those tools, much like narrative reporting, probably very different than any other reporting tool that you've used in the EPM space, unless you use the legacy disclosure management on-prem. So it will require a learning curve. It leverages the formatting options in Word. You, of course, can print off the Word, final object or export it to PDF. You can secure this. It does have a direct connection to the underlying data source, so you can press a refresh button, and essentially it updates the grids and charts that are in it. And of course, it has centralized maintenance and storage. Now, some of the cons, this will feel like, a refresher from narrative reporting, is that it cannot include attachments because, again, that concept doesn't really exist here. If you have a grid or a chart, you would normally just put it directly into the report package and not really include any attachments. In addition, much like the notes in management reporting, there's really no direct tie to a dimension intersection. So you basically just bring in the grid or the chart, and it doesn't really matter what the dimension intersection is. It just kind of sees it as a link to that direct underlying object. And again, like management reporting, it does not have a user tied directly to the narrative. That's very much like the narrative reporting tool, right? So it's not going to give you that ability like the notes feature does in management reporting. And here's one final demonstration that shows you how the disclosure management docklets are created, as well as how to tell your data story with this reporting tool. And again, you're going to feel a lot of in common functionality with the narrative reporting tool set. So this has some of even the same terminology. I'm going to create, like a little docklet. It's Word-based in this case. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this new docklet. And then once I create all my little docklets, so I have to create placeholders for all the little docklets, and then I can bring them into the disclosure management reporting object. So I've imported docklets that I pre-created in Word, which already have things in them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to this disclosure management object, and then I can add narration around those docklets. So this is going to look very familiar because I copied this from narrative reporting. But notice that I have my narrative in there already in the underlying docklet, as well as some charts and grids perhaps, and then I can still add narrative around this. And what I'm going to do is this is happening locally on my Smart View instance, and so I'm going to check it in and sync it to the cloud. And then it becomes available in the disclosure management objects. So in conclusion, this year has been a struggle for all of us, but not everything has to be a struggle. Narrative reporting can help you explain your variances and while keeping a direct connection to your data sources, so you don't have to copy and paste screenshots, which I know a lot of people are still doing today. To recap the takeaways, all of the tools within the narrative reporting suite allow you to enter in narrative or commentary. The narrative reporting tool is built for the business practice of narrative reporting through the creation of report packages. Management reporting will help you build static reports and has the capability of allowing end users to enter commentary through its notes feature. And finally, disclosure management, a tool built for statutory and regulatory filing, has narrative capabilities much like the narrative reporting tool. So there is a way within the entire narrative reporting suite, within every single tool, to be able to tell your story. Thank you for joining this session. I'm now going to open it up for Q&A. I think we have about 12 minutes left. So please let me know if you have any questions about this technology. And while we're waiting for any questions, I just want to let you know, I think you've seen this probably in every session today, that there is a networking session immediately following today's last session, and you can win a chance. You can win a set of wireless Bluetooth headphones. So that's going to happen at 2 o'clock Central, and you'll get an email inviting you to that networking session at 1:45 Central today. In addition, I think we've done a pretty good job of promoting this, but in case you still haven't heard this or you're new to this session today, Hyperion Solutions is a conference that Interrel is reprising, and it will happen October 19th through October 22nd. And we're going to have a lot of exciting sessions on all things formerly known as Hyperion. So this is really going to speak to the EPM and analytics space of Oracle, and we'd love to have you join us at this very free conference. All right, so let's see if there are any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Opal. That was a great presentation. I actually even learned a lot. Does anybody have any additional questions for Opal? Well, it doesn't sound like it. I guess you were very, very thorough. So nice job.
I guess so. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, Opal.